Hi everyone, this is Melissa from the Tassie Stitchers. I'm going it alone today. We thought it might be best if I did a bit of an update on my WIPs because I've just got so many more than Carolyn and we didn't want her to be sitting there just looking a bit bored. So today you just get me. This will be a WIP parade with a few finishes. This is everything I've worked on since the start of December. I'd just like to say for all those returning subscribers, thank you so much for coming back and watching us. And for everybody who's new, I hope you find something interesting here. I do tend to stitch on quite a different selection of pieces. I don't have a particular style. I just don't really like houses and alphabets, but you'll see some of those today anyway. So let's kick off these. Oh, and by the way, there will be no particular order to these. These are just as I'm picking them up. I'm going to try and keep anything that I've started this month. I won't show you any progress that I have made already this month. On some WIPs you will see. But we're hoping to get back together at the start of May and continue doing a bit more regular Flosstube. So to start off with a couple of finishes. This is one that I finished in December. It's on 2 pieces of fabric. It is the Tiny Modernist Advent Calendar. And you're not going to be able to see that very well because it's quite see-through fabric. It's stitched on a piece of Wichelt that Carolyn gave me because she didn't like it. So this is cut. So I'm going to turn these into little pockets and make my son an advent calendar. There's the rest. Obviously I stitched them in no particular order. They were basically stitched based on whether or not they fitted a prompt. And then here is the other ones. So I think they turned out quite cute. And once I get it fully finished, if I ever get it fully finished, I'll jump back on and show you all what it turned out like. So that's the Tiny Modernist Advent Calendar. Stitched in called for DMCs on a random piece of gifted Wichelt fabric. The next one that I finished, a few of you will probably remember seeing in the last video. So this is a piece that I've stitched for my dad. I'm yet to fully finish it. I'm still trying to work out whether I want to do a canvas finish or a frame finish on this one for him. But here it is. This is Arranging Tools by Ink Circles. I really liked the way this turned out, even though I got quite a few odd looks from people as to why I was stitching tools. But in the end, I think it turned out really well, and I really like it. So they're my 2 finishes that I have had since the start of December. I don't finish a lot. You'll see a lot of new starts though. So this is going to be noisy, there's going to be zips, there's going to be packing, because if I don't pack as I go, it's going to be very messy. So this was a new start in January, and this is Under Forest Grew by Rosewood Manor. I've been wanting to stitch this piece for ages and finally decided that why not start it for 2022. So here is where I'm at. I have done basically the start of the center motif with the writing. I'm trying to get the writing out of the way first because obviously it's not my favorite thing to do. That's better. So it's going to be a fairly big piece, and I'm stitching that in the call for DMCs on a piece of 40 count that I have dyed myself. Kind of a light pale green colour. And I have done, just so you know, since starting that in January, about 1,300 stitches in that one. Right, that's a new start that's coming up, so I'll pop that over there. This one is Temperature Butterflies by StitchinMommy, so I'm sure quite a few of you have already seen this one. So this is where I'm up to. I'm a bit behind on my filling in my colours, but I have done the outline of 5 of the butterflies and started the 6th. But I haven't got any colours into my March butterfly yet. This one kind of took a break in March, but it'll be picked up again at the end of this month and worked on, so I'm hoping to catch up on the February and March stuff. Oops, and that's stitched on 22 count fabric, and it's a piece that I bought from my local LNS. It's from Sugar and Spice. She doesn't dye anymore as far as I know, and it's a really pale light green colour, so I thought that would be nice for the butterflies. So that's had about 2,500 stitches in that one. Next up is Quaker de la Ferme by Jardin Privé. So this is a pattern that my son bought me for my birthday last year. I'm stitching this in 2 cottage garden threads, so olive and waratah. And this, and if you can hear my little dog in the background, I do apologise, but she loves to have a good bark. This is where I am up to. So just started across the top. I had this motif finished last year in September, so I've added the red fence and the other central, or part of the central motif. And I'm pretty sure that this is stitched on a piece of 32 even weave from Crafty Leaning. Yep. It was the February 21 fabric of the month in the colourway Lagoon. So Crafty Leaning is an Australian dyer. She does a bi-monthly fabric of the month. And if you're interested, she has a Facebook page, so jump on and have a look. Right, so this next one was a new start for me in January. This is by Reflect de Soie, or released by Reflect de Soie. This is Louise Lallier. Now this is, a lot of you will say, oh, that's got an alphabet, it's a sampler, it's not really my style, sorry for the glare. But it has a donkey, and I couldn't go past the donkey, so that's why we're stitching this. This is being stitched on a piece of 40 count, dyed in the Dove Gut colourway that you can find on my website for fancy fabrics. So I haven't made a very huge start, that's about 500 stitches, but I'll be working again on that one this month, and I'm really loving how this is turning out. And I am stitching this in the called for Soie d'Alger silks. So really enjoying this one. This is my first time using the Soie d'Alger, and I have to say I really am enjoying them, but they're quite expensive. So I don't know that we'll be doing lots of stitching with that, but we'll give it a go. And this is a lovely project bag that was made by Taryn from Teaser Handmaids. She also has a Facebook store, so if you want to check her out, she does some really nice work. Right, next up is my nemesis. This is Eliza Johnson. She will be finished this year because she didn't get finished last year. I just ran out of steam. But I only have the very, I'll see if we can get that all in. The very bottom section to finish. The 1/1 words are killing me, so I've given up on them for a while, and I've started working on the motifs in that bottom section. So that's where she's at. This is where I'm kind of working down in the bottom there. And this is also stitched on 40 count. This one though is done in the called for DMCs. I have to say the colour conversion from the Soie d'Alger to the DMC on this one, it's not as bright. Carolyn did hers in the Soie d'Alger, and you can certainly see the difference. And this is stitched in a colourway Eliza, which is again is one of my fancy fabrics, and it was dyed specifically for that design. It was exclusive to Carolyn's store for the first year, but it is now available in my shop as well if you're interested. Okay, next up we have the World's Postage Stamps by Soda Stitch. Now I've seen a few people out there stitching this one. I'm getting close. I'm right down here at the bottom now. This has also almost met its yearly goal. Its yearly goal was 3,000 stitches. So there's the top. And then we'll come down. And this is where I am now. So this is what I've worked on so far this year. You can see I've still got a bit of work to do in those top 3 stamps. And then the London stamp down the bottom. And I'm almost done. I don't reckon this will be a finish this year though. It's a fairly easy stitch, and for a Soda Stitch it doesn't have any backstitch. Or much backstitch. But it's just not up there on what I really want to work on. This is stitched on a piece of 32 count Joblin in colourway olive that I got from Sew It All. But I do believe it was on clearance, so I'm not sure that they carry that colour anyway anymore. Next up, one of my least favourite projects. This is the one that I'm stitching for my husband, but we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. This is Marvel by Mandarinks. Now I bought mine from her Etsy shop. I don't believe she has an Etsy shop anymore, but she does have her own independent website. It is a really nice design. It's just not my style. I think my biggest thing, it's on a very large piece of white 14 count Aida, which is not my favourite thing to stitch on. It is a lovely pattern though. She uses a lot of blended threads, and I'm stitching that in all the called for DMCs. So when I finish all the cross stitching, I get to do all the back stitching. There's a lot of back stitching in her designs as well, but it will be worth it once I get there. Okay, next up, it's another new start this year. This one I've already put almost 6,000 stitches into because I'm really liking it. A lot of you will have seen it. It's quite popular on Flosstube at the moment, and this is when it's been around for a while. This is a peacock, a unicorn and a badger. So you can see I've started the sun and I've done a lot of work up in this top corner, and then we went on a bit of a border stitch. That was actually for an Aussie Down Under Divas Aussie Jaunt task for 2,000 stitches in navy. But I'm really enjoying this piece. I love that you can work on outline, and then if you can't be bothered, you can just work on fill in. That's being stitched in the called for DMCs on a piece of 40 count Swigart in flax. And for those of you who haven't seen it, that is the pattern. This was my unicorn pattern. It was very hard to source in Australia, but thankfully Carolyn was finally able to find a supplier and she was able to get me a copy. So that was my new year, new start. Next up was something I asked for some advice on in the last Flosstube. So this is Ink Circle's Reflections of Paris. And as you may remember, I'm doing this all in beads. And I have put in just over 1,000 beads in this one. And I did go with the iridescent see-through black beads. And I'm really liking the way that one's turning out. It's a bit fiddly, but I think my mum will like it, and that's who it's for, so that's all that matters. But beading is certainly quite a lot slower than ordinary cross stitch. Next one up, this one has got quite a bit of work this year thanks to the DMC challenge in Magical Stitches. So this is yarn Houtman's Patchwork sampler, and I'm not stitching this in the called for colours. I was just stitching this in random colours for random prompts where they called for a particular colour and I didn't have it. So that's why it's come in really handy so far this year. I've started a lot of motifs and I've put in quite a bit of work. This was only meant to get 6 days of work this year for WIP Go, and I think we're already at 10 days of work. So that is where I'm up to. As a colour comes up, I just try and pick a spot where I think that colour will sit nicely. I'm liking how it turns out. We'll see. That one is just a work in progress. No particular finishing times. And it's being stitched on a piece of 32 count in antique white, even weave. So that is that. Next up, there's a couple of the next pieces are actually on Q snaps. So the first one is 13th Colony Bay. This is by the Bay Needleworks, and I'm doing all 3 patterns. I've started on the central pattern, and this is done on 32 count French Rain in Belfast linen. So really, I think it's Belfast. Really liking that one. Most of Donna's work is block colour, which I really like. But the last couple of bits have been around the island, a bit more, less block, more thinking. But you can't have it all. And I'm really liking the way that it's turning out. Sorry if I don't put my Q snaps back on, I'll never find them again. And I'll show you the middle pattern at least. That's what the middle is going to look like. So it's one of 3 patterns. They'll all get stitched in a row. And these are the 2 end ones. So I'm really enjoying stitching that one, but it's not a focus for the year. It'll get 3,000 stitches for WIP Go, and then it'll probably get put away. It's getting close. It's getting 2,000 stitches this month, so it won't be far off reaching its WIP Go goal. The next one is one of 2 circle designs that I'm stitching for my son. He's got 10 in a line for me all ready to go, but so far I've started 2. This is the first one. This is Kangaroo Circle, so this is coming quite handy for some Aussie jaunt challenges as well. I'll show you what that one's going to look like. I only have a print out of the pattern, so I'm going to hold it back quite away. These are from Oh My Stitches on Etsy. She is a Ukraine designer, so if you are interested in supporting some Ukraine designers at the moment on Etsy, she certainly has some lovely designs. She has quite a few of these circle type designs. I'll find the other one, which is just here. It's also on a Q snap. This one is Dolphin Circle. This one's already had over 5,000 stitches put in it. This one was started in December, and the kangaroo one was started in January. Again, these are called for DMC, and I'm stitching them on 22 count just to keep the size down. And they are in 8-inch Q snaps, so you can see they're quite small. Next up is one of the Year in the Wood series. As much as I love the fox, I've actually started with the rabbit. And I've started with the rabbit because he works. Oh, something's happened. Hang on. Sorry about that. Accidentally touched a button on my computer. So as I was saying, this is one of the Year in the Woods patterns. I would have liked to have started with the fox, but we ended up starting with the jackrabbit because I needed a pattern that had a smiling, something smiling or laughing. And I think he looks like he's smiling. So he's being stitched in all of the called for threads. And I'm stitching him on a piece of 40 count forest floor, which is a colorway that I have designed specifically for this series. You know, well, this is quite a grungy piece, but I like grungy pieces. I haven't got very far on that one, but this will be getting 1,000, and this was a new start this month. Right, now these are going to be really random. First up, Modern Folk Embroideries sale from last year. So this I'm stitching on 40. Can you see a what's the word? Pattern. I really like 40 count at the moment. So I'm stitching this on 40 count flax, Zweigart flax. I also like Zweigart flax. Got quite a few on that. I'm stitching this in 2 colors. So this is being stitched in Cottage Garden Dragonfly and also in DMC 3340. I really like how it's turning out. But again, this piece is not a focus. It's not even on my WIP Go board, so it will just come out when it comes out. I should mention for WIP Go, my WIP Go pieces all have annual goals. I don't have monthly goals. I try and work on them in the month that they are called, but that doesn't always happen. My primary focus for choosing WIPs this year is the Down Under Divas Aussie Jaunt Challenges. This is Rocky Horror. This is a stitch along by Olivia and Lee Studios that was put out last year. Don't know that I've made necessarily a lot of progress since you last saw it. But I do like this one. I love Rocky Horror, so I had to stitch it just because of that. So this is being stitched on a piece of 32 count even weave dyed in the colorway Ice Pick Murder, which was an exclusive dye that I did for the Sassy pouch. So Joy and Juanita are doing a great job of the Sassy pouch. They've just put out their first solo pouch for the 2 of them. And I'm sorry, I don't have a cover photo for how that one's going to look. This one is Stitching Bird. This was a pattern that was sent to me by Sammy J. So this is Stitching Bird by Heart in Hand. Again, not really my style, but I just thought it was really cute, so I thought I'd stitch it. It's being stitched on a scrap piece of 32 count that I have. It's a grey colour. I couldn't tell you exactly what grey it is, but as you can see, I haven't made a lot of progress. This was started last year for Mania. It'll probably get picked up on its birthday again this May. But it's not a priority stitch, it just gets pulled out when it meets a challenge. Doesn't meet meta challenges, considering I have a lot of patterns with birds. Next up is a project that I just want to get finished, but I also have no motivation to stitch on it. So I'm hoping it starts to meet a few challenges coming up. This is Sew to Stitch Fairy Tale Land 1. And as you will see, it's all done except for the Alice. And I'm making good progress, but it just seems to have come to a grinding halt. This is stitched on the called for DMCs on a piece of Crafty Leanie Fabric of the Month fabric. So as you can see, it's all complete. All the backs, I've been back stitching as I go on this one, which is also very unusual. But as you can see, I'm up in this top corner and I just need to get the Alice section completed. So I think when it's done, it'll be really, really nice, and I'm really liking the way it's turning out. I've just lost motivation on that one. It is on my WIP Go board, so I'm hoping that 3,000 stitches will be enough to get that one finished this year. Next up is Long Dog's Pandemic. I know a lot of you have seen this one. I haven't made a lot of progress. I'm stitching this with all of the Silks for You threads that we got for the Sassy pouch. And I'm stitching them in the order that they came out. So this was the first one from our first Sassy pouch spring. You can see I haven't made a lot of progress. Again, this is not a priority stitch for me this year. It's being stitched on a piece of Zweigart 32 count Belfast. And I'm not sure what colourway. Kind of looks like flax, but I don't know that they make 32 count Belfast in flax, but it's that kind of light brown colour. Because I'm stitching in such a riot of different colours, I just wanted a neutral, fairly neutral background for that one. Right. Next up was another new start this year. I've gone a bit crazy with starts this year, can you tell? So this is Wind in the Willows Sal. And this got started because of bingo, because I couldn't find enough colours in my existing projects. So why not start another one? So I have started in the very bottom corner. This will be the bunny. Again, I'm sorry I don't have a picture that I can show you, but I'm sure you've all seen the Wind in the Willow Sal. It's the big picture frame. So I think that's had 1,000 stitches in it. It's being stitched on 32 count Star Sapphire from Zweigart. Again, I just opted for a really neutral background because being a Sal, you don't actually know what it's going to look like. And it does have some very large chunks of full coverage stitching, so I'm glad I went for a plainish colour. This one has been around for a while. It is on my WIP Go board and it is due for 3,000 stitches, so that should finish it off. Oops, that's upside down. This is Mandala Llama, and I'm pretty sure this is by Zentangle Designs. She's pretty cute. She got called for, I used her for bingo last month as well. So that's what she's going to look like. She's really cute. She's got some roses and stuff. I really like the mandala designs. But being a llama, she doesn't come out much because she doesn't meet many prompts. She's also being stitched called for DMC. If I don't mention, they're all called for DMC. And this is on a 22 count fabric, the same as I'm stitching the butterflies. Sorry, I'm digging down into my basket that I've got on the floor. Right, this one is a needle point. I'm not showing you my needle points today. This one. This is some Christmas stitching that I'm doing. I'm doing Christmas gnomes, and I've got my last, so I'll show you all of my Christmas gnomes because you might not have seen them. They're not my favourite thing, but you know, you do what you do. Sorry, I'm expecting a courier to come as well. So here we are. This is one. I'm just going to check to see who that is. Okay, sorry about that. That was not the courier, but my dog went crazy barking at somebody visiting my neighbour, so I had to go and rescue him. So, Christmas gnomes. And this is one that I've completed. These are all by a Russian designer. If you're interested, I can try and find out who or where I got them from. It was somewhere on Etsy. And there's another two. And then this one I finished last year. And this is the one I've got left to do. He was a May start, so he'll come out again on his birthday in May. He is on my WIP Go board for 3,000 stitches. 3,000 stitches is going to be more than enough to finish him, so he will get finished this year at some point. This one, I don't know why this one isn't finished because I love working on it. This is Nevermoor by Leela Studios. I believe that's how we say it. I was saying it wrong for quite a while there. So I'm stitching this on a piece of 40 count fabric that I've dyed. It is the Nevermoor colorway from Fancy Fabrics. And this is where I am up to. So as you can see, I've just got to finish this black border down here. And then I've got all of the green lagoon stitching to pop in. So this one for me had a bit of an issue because at the time I was stitching this, we just were not able to source many of the called for colours. So I got what I could and I stitched what I could in what I had. We couldn't get the slug bug, the thread gatherers or whatever it is. So slug bug was substituted by a cottage garden thread, Sierra. And I really love the way this one turned out. I really like that main motif that was stitched with it, which is this one here. I really like the way that one turned out. I really like, to me it looks very similar to the thread that they've used in the pattern. So if you're looking for a good substitute for slug bug, I can highly recommend Sierra by Cottage Garden. Oh, here. This is on WIP Go. It's down, all my pieces are down for 3,000 stitches or a finish. So I'm hoping 3,000 stitches will get that close to a finish this year, but if it's not, then it carries over to next year. That's fine. Next up we have what's this? Oh, this is Gloria by Modern Folk Embroidery. So I started this on the 15th of September last year. This is a piece I'm stitching in recognition of my grandmother. Gloria was her favourite hymn that we used to sing in church. But obviously it was only sung at Christmas time. And I had Jo from Silks For You dye me up some custom silk to stitch it in. in her favourite colours. So my grandma loved Sweet Williams, carnations and pansies. So we have the dark red of the Sweet Williams because they were her favourite colour and they were the hardest ones to grow. I remember as a child being in charge of going out and making sure that I collected all the seeds from the dark red Sweet Williams every year. Purple from the purple pansies because they were her favourite colour, pansy. And then pink because pink roses and pink carnations were two of her favourite flowers. So that's the silk that I'm stitching that in. I haven't made great progress on this one, but I believe this is on my WIP Go board as well, so it will get 3,000 stitches this year. And this is just being stitched on, I think it's Pearl Grey, Zweigart 32 count Belfast Pearl Grey. I really like the way that that silk is stitching up. It's so pretty. And I wish she was still around to see it, but she lived a good life. She lived to 87, so you can't scoff at that. So I'm in no rush to finish that one. I just really enjoy stitching on that and thinking about her. There we are. Oh, next up is the temperature piece that I started in 2020, and we all know how 2020 went. So this is temperature balloons from StitchinMommy. As you can see, it's very green here in Tasmania. I used the varied temperature chart, but our temperature is very, very the same. You can see down here in this balloon, I think most of those 3 months were between 13 and 15 degrees. So they all ended up being the same colour. But despite the fact that they're all similar, green is my favourite colour, so I'm not unhappy. And that's being stitched on a 1/1 in the called for DMCs on a piece of random Zweigart 25 count that I've had lying around for about 30 years. So you may not be able to get that shade blue anymore. Okay, next up. This is, I think, my only Blackbird Designs piece. This is Yellow Submarine. I love Yellow Submarine. I love the Beatles. This is being stitched on the same piece of fabric as 13th Colony Bay. And that's where I'm up to. So I'm doing a mixture of DMC substitutes and called for fancy floss. So I've only used the fancy floss where I've actually thought it was necessary. I haven't used the fancy floss for the little tiny details because I just wasn't going to buy a whole skein of fancy floss for a couple of stitches when you can't really tell the difference. So, but I do like Yellow Submarine. That's mostly done. Just got to fill in all the bits around the outside. Also on my WIP Go board, I doubt 3,000 stitches will finish it, but you never know. Right, this is my least favourite piece. This is, and I don't think it's a pattern. I like the pattern. I just think it was bad. I like the way it looks on the fabric. I just don't enjoy stitching it. So we will persevere and get it done. But this is I Love Summer. It's a pattern from the Cross-Stitching magazine. It was summer 2019, I think, pattern. This was started, I think, in 2020. So I am liking the way it's turning out. The fabric is a Crafty Leanie Fabric of the Month fabric. And I do have a picture. This is what it's going to look like. And yes, I think I'll turn mine into a bag as well. So that's where we're at. This is on my WIP Go. It will only get its WIP Go stitches. It's had a couple of times out this month or this year for Aussie Jaunt stitching. And that's kind of only comes out when it has to. It's one of those I also tend to get done fairly early on in the year, so I don't have to look at it again for the rest of the year. Next up, this is Baskets by Rosewood Manor. I actually received this pattern as part of a Bonanza bundle from the Fox collection. Probably the only one out of the 5 patterns that I got that I'll stitch. But I wasn't complaining. This is being stitched on some 32 count donkey from Fancy Fabric. I'm stitching it with the called for Valdani pack. Hasn't had a lot of progress, but that's where we're up to. Again, this is a WIP Go piece this year, so it will get its 3,000 stitches, and I think this year it's had about 1,000 already. I do enjoy working on that one though, but again, not a priority. Just gets pulled out when I feel like it. I do apologise about all the dings. It is a work day here for me, kind of having a mental health brain break at the moment. This is a 4-in-1. So I've got 2 finished and 2 I'm working on, and the 2 I'm working on are on my WIP Go board for this year. So these are Beach Buddies cards. These are designed by Doreen Jones. So as you can see, I've completed the mice. They're really cute. They're sleeping in their hammock. And I've completed the dogs. And they're having a bit of fun on the beach. And then these will be foxes. And then we've got a pussycat that's passed out in his chair. So they're stitched on 22 count in just a random piece of fabric that I dyed myself. That was actually dyed for another project you'll see soon. So you can see I've completed this one, and we're still working on the cat and the foxes. This again was in the 2019 summer edition. 2019? Yeah, 2019 summer edition of the CrossStitching magazine. Actually stitching a few things out of that edition. The 2 that are left are also Womania starts, so they'll also come out for their birthdays in May. So because I have so many WIPs, I do try and pull them out at least once a year and work on them on their birthday. This was a new start this year. This is a little Biscornu that I've started because I had to stitch on something with a penguin and I didn't have anything with a penguin. So this is a pattern from CrossStitcher magazine. It's one of the more recent ones, I think. So it's got little polar bears and then penguins sitting on their back and a penguin behind. I do have a picture. This is what it'll look like. So this is the first Biscornu that I've ever tried to stitch. think it's pretty cute. And this is just being stitched on a random offcut of 32 count Belfast that I had lying around. I'm not sure of the exact colourway. It could even be permanent linen. It doesn't feel stiff enough to be permanent linen, so I'm thinking it's a Belfast. So that was one that I started this year. Not a priority, not on my WIP go board. This one's been around for a while and it will probably be around for quite a lot longer. I like it, I just have no desire to stitch on it. This is the Harry Potter sale by Cunning's CrossStitch. This was a free sale that was put out by Stewart. I'm not making any alterations to his patterns, I'm just stitching them as they are. As you can see, I've started lots of the sections, but I haven't finished any particular one. I generally use this for colour prompts or if it fits a particular prompt. Comes out quite often for birds of prey because I'm a Ravenclaw and the Ravenclaw is obviously a hawk. That's 32 count even weave. This was a custom die that was done for me by Crafty Leanie. Again, I'm sorry I don't have a cover photo for that, but I'm sure that you have all seen the Harry Potter sale in some form or another. Oh, we're getting there. I've only got about half a dozen or so left. This one has been out for 3,000 stitches and they're done. It may come out again because this one does meet a lot of prompts. But this is Hello Summer. Again, also out of the CrossStitcher magazine summer edition. This is being stitched on 32 count fabric flare in retro green, I think it's called. Art Deco green. And I really like the way that that's turning out. Again, just called for DMC. And this is what it will look like. So there are 4 patterns in this series. I won't be stitching the winter pattern because it's Christmas, and being in Australia we don't have Christmas in winter. But I am planning on stitching the summer and the autumn, so hopefully I will have 3 of these. They are nice patterns to stitch on. Big chunks of colour, which I like. Not too much backstitch, which I like. Right, not that one. What's this one? Oh. This is the other one that is on the other piece of fabric, the same as the Beach Buddies cards. This is the Orient. This is a piece that I had collected many years ago. This is from the Jill Oxten's Beading and Stitching magazine. Many years ago I was very heavily into beading, so I was collecting the magazines for the beading projects, but couldn't throw them away because they're so beautiful. It does have some metallic, and yes, that is DMC, E, whatever. Don't ever stitch in that. It's not nice. It's devil stitching. The last time I stitched on this, I had to do 500 stitches in devil thread. No. Not fun at all. This is what it will look like. These patterns are all by Noyce. And I do have a few of them collected. So I would like to do a couple of these. I like the long skinny. They're not quite, the central panel is full coverage, but there is some empty space in the border. but I do like them. They stitched theirs on 14 count navy Aida. I didn't want quite so dark, so I went with this denim-y blue 22 count. So I'm stitching mine on 22 count. And there is some sparkle red, but I bought the thread before I picked my fabric, so I've bought size 8 braid. So I think I'm going to have to swap that out for a number 4 braid. And I might even see if I can find a red treasure braid instead of using the Kreinik, but the red metallic will probably be the last thing that I stitch. That is on my WIP Go board. It will get its 3,000 stitches. It probably won't get more than that. Right, so this is the last non-full coverage piece. This is a Long Dog sampler. This is St. Sylvester. I really like this. This is being stitched in the Silks for You on, I think it's Pearl Grey. Pearl Grey's Wide Art Belfast. I'm stitching this in the Silks for You PR 038. And this is just beautiful. This is green, blue, turquoise and grey. So I really, really like this. I've seen this colourway being stitched up by quite a few different people. And I've pretty much done the bottom quarter, minus a little bit of back stitching, and the last time I pulled it out we started to head up a bit. This is on WIP Go. It will get 3,000 stitches. Again, not a priority, but I do really love the way that silk is stitching up. It's so pretty. And there goes Dad. So that's Long Dog Sampler's St. Sylvester. As you can see, I really like Silks for You. And it's such a beautiful silk at such a reasonable price. Right, now we are on to full coverage. So if I can find my phone, I'll find you some cover photos for these, because so this first one is an artisy piece that I'm stitching. This is called Shiva, and I love cats. I'm stitching this on 22 count. It was a piece of hot pink 22 count that I got from Sew It All, from a clearance sale they were having, and as you can see, we haven't made a great deal of progress. We're just up in that top corner. But this is a WIP Go piece, so it will get at least 3,000 stitches. Most of my full coverages will probably get 5,000 stitches, so that I can meet the Full Coverage Fanatics Challenge, Whips and Wonders, I think it's called. The next one is an Aimee Stewart piece, Little Cake Shop. So this is max colour because I'm crazy. So it is super confetti heavy. Also, it's not super size, but her designs are quite big. This is 725 by 483. I'll bring down the contrast, that's a bit bright. There, that's better. So I have seen a few people stitching this as well. This is a HAED. I'm not going to take this out of the Q-snap so you can just kind of see where I'm up to, but I'm only on like, oh, well, you can see everything I've done anyway. So this is where I am. Still up in the ceiling. But these plates here, this plate and this plate over here and this banner, oh my goodness. Confetti, confetti, confetti. Slow, 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 slow. This is being stitched on 25 count, 1/1, called for DMCs. And I think it's antique white. I just don't really like stitching on bright white. And for my full coverages, I mostly use pillow slicks. Because project bags aren't big enough. Second last full coverage. This one you won't be able to see all of. I might be able to pull some of it out. I'll pull the exciting bit out, not the background. This is the piece I started when I came back to cross stitch. So this was the first piece that I started stitching on in October 2018. I decided to do this on 18 or 19. Might have been 19. I can't remember now. I decided to do this 2/1 on 18 count because I'm crazy. I will never be doing a 2/1 on 18 count full coverage again. I don't like it. This is a very large pattern for something that you don't particularly like working on. It wasn't really worth it. And this is where I'm up to. So I've done all this up here is all background, and I've just managed to get in to the owl. So 3,000 stitches were put on this in January, mostly down here in blues and purples because I had to stitch 2,000 stitches in blue. So that's, move that needle. So that's why. Normally on this I stitch 100 by 100 blocks and I come over if the colour comes into the next block until we meet another colour. So I don't feather on purpose, but if that colour travels I'll stitch it until it ends and then come back again. So you can see this one went on for quite a way. I won't take them too far, but that's kind of how I get past the blocky. So I do really enjoy the colours in this one. I just don't enjoy the 2/1 on the 18 count Aida. 18 count Aida and 36 count linens and even weaves just aren't my preferred count. But having been out of cross stitch for such a long time, you don't remember what your favourite was. And 25 count 1/1 or 2/1 was a bit daunting, so I probably should have stuck with that. Right, last one is probably my favourite full coverage piece. So this is Rubber Ducky Dragon, artwork by Stanley Morrison, and this is released by Pain Free Crafts, as is the Wind in the Willow sale. I don't think I mentioned that. That's from Pain Free Crafts. If you're interested in that sale, I believe you can still jump on board for that one. Just go to their website. So that's that. You won't, this one is on my Omanic frame, so you won't, and I'm stitching it on the diagonal, one stitch at a time, so you can't see the very bottom pointy, but because it's on my Omanic and it's also on my Lowry extension, I'm not going to unscroll it. But you can see I am making really good progress on the dragon's head. This was a major focus piece last year. It will probably only get about 5,000 or so stitches in it this year. But that's okay. You can't focus on everything all the time, and I do feel like towards the end of last year I was starting to get a little bit of burnout on this project, but I am excited to jump into that soon. Don't mind all my threads and needles because I'm stitching that on the diagonal, one stitch at a time, which I swore I'd never do. It's a bit messy with threads and needles going everywhere. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sorry it went for so long. This is when I join them all together. I reckon this is going to be just over an hour. But thank you so much if you managed to make it to the end. I'll try and put all of the details in the description box over the Easter long weekend. If you do have any questions regarding any of the pieces, though, if I forgot to give you any of the information, please just let me know and I'll follow up as best I can. Again, thanks so much, and hopefully you should see Carolyn and me back in May. Okay, bye.